A young man's life cut short.
It's very raw, and it doesn't ever get better.
A crisis hiding in plain sight.
You just really don't know what's going on through someone's mind.
From the pandemic to pressures of everyday reality and online.
There's not really an escape from it.
How to recognize if your son, daughter, or friend is hurting.
Tonight, we are shining a spotlight on the mental health of our kids.
And where parents and kids can turn for life-saving help.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Melissa Langben.
And I'm Brad Hansen.
We are standing in a classroom just like any class that our kids head to every day for our special Our Kids in Crisis mental health emergency.
Tonight, during the next half an hour, we're digging deeper into the mental health emergency and how the pandemic has made it even worse for kids.
We'll hear from students on the challenges that they are facing and what experts are seeing.
We're also looking at the solutions, how parents, the community, and schools can help save a life, including the many resources available throughout our area that can make a difference.
But first, we do want to start with News 9's Nina Poholke. She had the chance to talk with the family of Cody Seiler. He's one of several kids who died by suicide in our area last year. Let's take a listen to their message to other parents.
A quiet day at Kellyland Park in Weston.
It's very raw, and it doesn't ever get better.
A place Cody Seiler used to love. He loved sports and fishing and hunting, and he just loved hanging out with his friends. The 17-year-old always making others laugh.
He was always fun and loving. He's always smiling and having a good time and laughing.
But several months ago, he died by suicide.
You just really don't know what's going on through someone's mind.
Shocking those who knew him.
He was the most caring, genuine person I've ever met.
Leaving behind an emptiness.
You're expecting him to come home, and then after months go by, it's, you just start missing them more. You start wondering if they're going to come home, and then they don't. They're just gone.
Now, a few months later,
there have been kids that have Snapchat Cody and it's nice to hear that they're thinking about him and he's not forgotten.
Bethany is trying to keep this from happening to any other family.
I would never want anyone else out there to go through what we have gone through.
Her advice, don't shy away from the conversation of suicide.
It needs to be a topic that you talk to your children about. I want this to be an opportunity for parents to have those difficult discussions and use this as an example of why it's important to talk about suicide in your homes and talk about mental health and awareness. Talk to your kids. Ask them these difficult questions.
And even if you don't want to talk to your parents, Bethany says if you're struggling, find someone.
Find a teacher, a coworker, someone that you can talk to, and don't be afraid to speak what's going on. And then everybody that is the recipient of someone coming to you, really listen to them. Are they telling you that they're really struggling? Just be there for each other.
And be there for them, because you never know. Being a shoulder to lean on could save a life.
I'm hoping in this tragedy and stuff that Cody's life before and after can make a difference in another kid's or even an adult or anybody that's out there that's struggling and stuff.
Reporting for News 9, I'm Nina Poholke.
Thank you, Nina. And some alarming numbers from the Centers for Disease Control saying suicide is the #2 leading cause of death for kids 10 to 14 years old and the 3rd leading cause of death for those 15 to 19. That information from 2020.
The CDC also releasing information on teens' mental health during the pandemic. In 2021, more than 1/3 of students reported poor mental health during the pandemic, and 44% said they were persistently sad or hopeless. More than half say they experienced emotional abuse from an adult in their home, with 11% being physically abused.
A group of students at DC Everest High School helped spearhead projects to get the conversation started on wellness. That included an entire day they held last week dedicated to mental health.
I had the chance to meet with them to hear what they feel are the biggest challenges and what can be done to change it. Here's what they had to say.
We've seen multiple tragedies.
We recognize there's a problem, and we also want parents and teachers to recognize that.
I think reaching out to people is just always a better way to make you feel that you're not alone.
teens have a lot going on.
The social media and sports and clubs and extra hours of homework after school is done.
Work.
And jobs.
Like parents, they don't understand that the curriculum has changed. Classes definitely got harder.
Leaving many feeling more than just stress.
I think that it's very important that we bring a light to not only depression and anxiety, but also to comorbid, mental disabilities like autism and ADHD.
There's a lot more students ever since COVID that have started to get depressed.
Studies show teen mental health had been declining in recent years. The pandemic sent it spiraling out of control.
I think that there's been no consistency in our lives for the last couple years, and that's hard because there's no balance.
It brought changes in education for students during a difficult time.
Online school was easy for many, and it was really hard for a lot of us.
The high school years are a time when many struggle to figure out who they are and how they fit in. Many were met with isolation and the loss of milestone moments, staying connected through sometimes toxic social media.
Like, that ties into it because we feel like we have to be making a social impact and be putting our best selves out there.
Reaching out when they need help can be challenging.
How most students struggle very internally, where it's very hard for us to maybe express our emotions outwardly or show that we are struggling because we're afraid to ask for help.
Not only for themselves.
And another thing is knowing when a friend asks you for help or when a friend tells you that they're having bad thoughts or something such as that, what they can do to help a friend.
Guidance counselor Brooke Davis says kids need to know they have someone they can share their feelings with.
And it is building the trust, and it's building trust with adults in the building. It's about building trust with some adult in your life, whether it's a teacher, a parent, but somebody that you can turn to.
It's a conversation that could be a lifesaver.
But just listen and just be there.
It is a really good feeling that you know that there's people that you can talk to. But I definitely do think that it's a lot of practice, and it does take a little bit of time.
What an inspiration to meet with those students who've taken it upon themselves to reach out and really try to make a difference in the lives of their classmates.
Yeah, it's awesome to see them so open about everything. Well, the mental health issue is having a big impact on kids in the classroom. Jennifer Connect, principal at Stevens Point's Charles Fernandez Center, tells us just how bad it's gotten.
From a school perspective, we're seeing it as a big problem. We're seeing kids not engaging in school quite as much. Attendance rates are dropping, so kids aren't coming to school. Students are having a hard time with developing regulation strategies and coping strategies.
So what should you do if your child is in a crisis situation?
North Central Healthcare says to reach out and get help immediately. Even if you aren't sure if it's quite crisis level, they say that's what they're there for, to figure out what kind of help your child might need.
The threshold for action should be low. So if you're concerned, do something. Reach out.
Something positive I hear from the kids that are on the hospital unit here is they say, I didn't realize that I wasn't alone in this. So I think it's important to recognize that these kids are not alone.
They also recommend reaching out to guidance counselors at school, other therapy services, or the crisis hotline. Experts urge parents to be proactive and reach out for help before it gets to a crisis level.
So what are the biggest mental health challenges our teens are facing? Experts tell us depression and anxiety have been increasing in our youth since before the pandemic and have only gotten worse since then. And they expect that to keep rising. They're also seeing an increase in ADHD and eating disorders.
Experts and kids say a big reason those are increasing: social media. News 9's Catherine Halverson explains why and how to fix it.
When we go home, it's on our phones, it's with us all the time. We're thinking about it constantly, it's 24/7. And there's not really an escape from, like, social drama.
A problem plaguing the current generation kids.
It can be really helpful for some people and it can be really harmful for some people.
And an issue many parents didn't have to deal with at that age.
It can be really overwhelming for kids, and it creates a forum for comparison, and I think it can be really detrimental for self-esteem.
Experts say the pandemic has just made the impact even worse. hurting kids' ability to interact socially.
Such a superficial way to connect, and so it's missing that empathy and that depth. So their developmental needs for connection and like a sense of well-being and feeling like they belong just really wasn't there during the pandemic.
What can be done? Well, experts say there is a solution.
There's a lot of things parents can be doing at home in terms of being able to limit screen time, which I know is probably a very challenging thing for many of our parents.
Experts also recommend get outside and do activities with your kids. It could help their mental health and keep them off their screens. Reporting for News 9, I'm Catherine Helverson.
So how can you actually reduce your kids' screen time? First, know how much time your child is spending on devices, as screen time should be no more than 2 hours per day for teens and adults, 1 hour for kids 2 to 12, and none for those 2 and under. Experts emphasize making and enforcing those limits. Don't have a TV or computer in your child's room. Make mealtime, family time, no devices, and have your child find a hobby that doesn't involve screens. Lastly, set a good example.
There are several other big resources available in north central Wisconsin. One of those, United Way's 211. You can call that number at any time of the day and from anywhere across the state. They have tons of resources available, from mental health counselors to crisis members and psychiatrists.
We have the mental health first aid counseling. We try to talk to people in a very non-judgmental way and just hear their story. They can feel comfortable that when they call us, all of their information is confidential. They won't be judged for any of their needs.
Again, you can call 211 at any time of day. Parents or kids can call the number and get whatever help they might need. Different cultures come with their own challenges when it comes to mental health. We'll share how you and your family can overcome those issues and start one of the most important conversations you may ever have.
Plus, we'll share some of the ways you and your kids can be equipped to deal with a crisis.
And we're taking a closer look at some of the programs already in place at area schools to tackle mental health. We'll have that and much more still ahead. We want to remind you that you are not alone and that there are several resources you can reach out to for help. A big one to remember is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK. If you are LGBTQ, you can also reach out to Trevor Lifeline. United Way's team of information and referral specialists is another resource standing by to help. Just call 211. And don't forget about CAP services in Portage and Wapaka counties.